I believe you can see the chat, correct? Just need to make sure you can hear me, please, and so that you can start. Okay, some people are also joining. Okay, perfect, amazing. Wow, where is... 1 minute. I'm just gonna get the correct... No, that's not. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, perfect. You can see the screen, correct? I just need to make sure you can see the screen. Okay, amazing. So, hello everyone. In today's session, we are going to tackle an important topic, which is Git and GitHub, since this is something that is crucial in software development, especially if you're starting your career as a developer. So I will be here with you today. My name is Marilyn. I'm a software developer with 2 years of experience working at Logitech, and I'm also a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador with the Beta Milestone. So I think we can start tackling this topic. For the agenda, we are going to discover what is Git, and we'll do a small demo about it. We will also check the difference between what is Git and GitHub. We will also guide you to build your first repository on GitHub. Moreover, at the end of the session, there's gonna be a quiz for you to do in order to claim your e-certification for attending this event. And finally, with Zainul, we are going to tackle the GitHub Developer Student Pack, and he is also going to talk about the pre-exam for GitHub Foundation that you could get. All good so far? Perfect. Okay, so regarding the guidelines, I need you guys to participate because when you participate, you make sure that everyone is getting the information. I also need you to ask questions because we needed to make sure that the information is well, uh, um, uh, you got the information very clearly. And finally, I needed to know that this is a safe space. I don't want you to worry about the question that you need to ask. All the questions are safe to be asked as long as you are trying to learn and get the information that you need in order to succeed in this field. So I believe we can get started now. I believe you have your phone because I needed to scan this link. Okay, I need to scan this link. I'm gonna share it here as well. Okay, so this is my first question for you today. I'm gonna share the link and send it on the chat. And I need you to answer your first thoughts about what is Git. So here we're waiting for your responses. I need you guys to participate. I need to make sure what is the first idea that you have about Git in order to go from there. And make sure that all the information is well clear for you. Okay, I see control system, version control, I see tool. How many attendees do we have? 25. So we need 25 answer. Waiting for you guys. Teams on project, code, open source, collaboration between teams. I see some good answers. System for repository. What is a repository? Workflows. Those are some great answers. I'm waiting for the others. Okay, it's free. Interesting. Nice. Okay. Collaborative projects. Okay, I see some like buzzword that you all listen to when you talk about Git. So I think we can tackle it now. Okay, so let's get back to our PowerPoint. I'm gonna open it here normally. Okay. So back to this. We have seen some of your words about what is Git, and some of you are very correct. Because when you talk about Git, it's not only related to code. This is something that I need to clear out. Git is not only used for coding, it's used for tracking something in general. And I believe we all can actually relate to this issue that you all face when you have a project that you have to submit and we have to keep doing changes on it. We find ourselves always naming the file as final version. Like I think all of you have went through this, correct? Final. I'm waiting for your reaction. Okay, amazing. So this is something that you always we face, not only as a developer, but as someone working on a project that you are looking forward to finalize in order to send it or submit it. So this issue is actually solved with Git, which is exactly a tool to help us track the global information that you are changing. So Git actually stands for Global Information Tracker, which help us track the information about who did a certain change, when did a certain change happen, and where exactly did the change happen. All clear so far? Okay, amazing. So let's continue from here. Git is indeed free. It's an open source distributed version control system to help us handle the big projects or even the small projects. But why do we need it as developers? Why do we need Git? So it's actually solving many issues. As we first talked about it, it fixed the issue that you have in naming our final projects. So with GitHub, we can solve this issue. This is one. Second, we always have a single point of truth, which means you are not going to have multiple final projects, as we already said. It's only one final project, which help you out in managing your system or your software or your code or even your normal file. Third of all, it keeps track of everything that have changed. You have not to worry about finding the differences between a previous version and the current version because all of this is managed through Git, and we are going to see how in a few. And four, you will make sure that since you have one single point of truth, and you know that you are not going to have a final project without it being working, you will make sure then that your project is actually working. Like the final project is always a good version of your project. You got what I mean regarding the benefits? Okay, got it. That's amazing. So these are the benefits. And when we talk about Git, we have actually many phases. We have something called the workspace. In the workspace, you are free to do all the changes that you need. Nothing is submitted yet. You are doing whatever you need. Nothing is submitted, as I said. But then you have something temporary, which is staging. So, for example, if you are testing something in your current workspace or in your current file, for example, you are adding a new line. Okay, so this is still in your workspace stage. But when you need to make sure that, yes, I need this, I want to save this, but I don't want to actually commit it to my repository. I want it to stay like in a temporal phase. Here comes the staging part. Like I need this to be changed, but I need to check something else at this moment. I still don't want to commit my changes. So this is the difference between these two. So how do I actually create a checkpoint or a final version of my project? It's when I commit something, which happens to be in my local repository. So let's go from the start, okay? Let's say I have created a new file. The new file is actually in my workspace. So good so far? Okay, so we have this. Our file is in our workspace. I did some changes in it. I still didn't want to save my file, but I need to make sure that my changes are saved in a way temporarily. In order to do that, I need to call this command, git add. When I do that, it will be added in my staging area. When I finally am sure of this change, and I need to commit it and save the final version of my file, I have to call git commit, and this will finally be in the final version of my local repository. So here are the differences between the three staging area. Does anyone have a question? Okay, I don't think so. So we are going to go forward. In order to test out Git I'm talking about, you can check this link. You can download Git and make sure that your machine is able to use this tool in order to track the changes. Once you have it downloaded, I'm going to open the terminal now. 1 minute, I'm going to open the terminal. Okay, and I'm going to call the command from here. First of all, I need to check that I have the latest version of Git. So here is the version 2.45.1, while here, when you go into Windows, you can notice that it's 2.46.1. So mine needs an update, but you can get the latest here. So that's the first step. Second, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the desktop. 1 minute, the desktop. Okay, so I'm currently in the desktop here. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, first of all, I'm gonna create a new folder. Okay, so this is a folder that I have just created. But if I open the folder, I'm gonna notice that there's nothing inside yet. It's empty. So in order to tell Git that I need to use it here to track the changes, I have to initialize it. So I call it here git init. Git init. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I have to go into Git folder and call git init. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, now it worked. It's git initialize. I'm initializing my git tool within the folder, and you can notice here that it is hidden, and all of the changes will actually be recorded within this folder. But in order to be able to track a change, I need to make sure that I have the credentials of a certain author of the change. So I'm gonna go back here just to show you the commands. So here what we did so far, we have created a folder, and we have created, or we have initialized the Git tool within our folder. Next step, we have to let Git know that we are the person who is doing the change. This is why we use the git config global, and we set the username. Moreover, we use git config global, and we put our email. This will be used by Git to save the change as made by me. And we can check the changes if we use, let me remember. Okay, so here we created the folder. Okay. Let's get, okay. Okay, I'm gonna go back to this. So this is our folder. We have initialized the folder to be tracked. We made sure that our user has been tracked to be the author of the change. And now we are going to start doing some changes. So for example, I'm gonna start to do by creating a new file. For example, I have created the new.txt within my file. You can check it here, it is added. Next, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna check what does Git see at this moment. Does anyone know in what stage are we currently in? Are we in the workspace or in the staging area or in our local repository? Regarding to Git as surely. Anyone have an idea? So two people said workspace, someone said local. What do we mean by local? Local repository? Okay, local is actually wrong because based or if we see it from the Git perspective, it's actually in our workspace. We still didn't commit any change. So if we check on here, Git status, we will notice that no commits are actually available now. Okay, we are in our main branch, and we can see that new.txt here is in red. What does it mean to be in red? It means that it is still not committed. It is still not saved for GitHub to see. If we want to now track it or send it into our staging area, we have to call another command which we saw earlier. It's called git add. Okay, but in order to call it, you have to specify what file exactly we need to add, which is why in our case we have to call git add the changes that you made in new.txt. And if we call git status now, you will notice that the new file that was added is now in green, which means that it is finally in our staging area, but it is still not committed. You can see here that no commits are yet available in our repository. So if I need now to send it into our local repository, does anyone know what command I should use? We said that no commits is as yet committed, so what do we have to do? Git commit, exactly. So what you have to do is git commit, okay? And since we are talking about our staging area, okay, because we usually use -a, we use it because sometimes you would like to commit all the changes that are in our workspace and in our staging area. In our case, at the moment, all of our changes that we made are in the staging area, so we don't need to use -a. But we have to commit something using a message. So if you try to just write git commit, I don't believe it's gonna work. Yeah, it's not gonna work because it's gonna ask for a commit message here, as you noticed. So I'm gonna cancel it for now, and I'm gonna write it again, git commit. In order to send a message, as Hani said, we put git commit with a message, and we say, for example, added a new file. So here we have committed one file or one change into our local repository. So if we want to check the changes that we made in our repository, what is the command that you have to call? That we use many times at this moment. Git, like we want to see the changes, we have to call git status. I was waiting for your answer, guys. So it's git status. At this moment, nothing has actually, no changes have been done, okay? Which is why in our workspace, in the perspective of Git, there are no changes anymore. Our changes are finally saved in our checkpoint in our local repository. So if I need to check what are the changes that are committed into my folder or into my file, I have to call the following command, git log. So you can notice here that this is a command, this is a commit, and here is the code for it, or the ID. Here you can see who is the author and the time. Moreover, you can see the commit message that we saw earlier. Amazing, guys. So this is how we can see how Git is being used in our local machine. As you notice, this is only happening locally. Nothing, uh, nothing is using the internet, let me say. Nothing is hosted elsewhere. Everything is on my local machine. So if we continue here, um, we have just tackled git init to initialize our folder in order to start tracking the changes. Then we learned about git status, which help us know what are the changes that are happening in my workspace and in my staging area. Then we are using git add to move the changes from the workspace into the staging area. And in order to move my changes from the staging area to the local repository or to my checkpoint, let me say, we are using git commit. And finally, to see the committed changes on my local repository, we are using git log. So this is the first part. Everyone have any question? Everything is clear? Perfect. So let's move forward. I'm gonna delete this because you don't need it now. So let's check why do we need GitHub in this case? Does anyone know what is the difference between Git and GitHub? You can say no, this is a safe space. Okay, let's tackle it, I guess. So where does GitHub fit in? GitHub is not a tool, let me say, because it's a company, okay? It's not a free software, it's a company that offers cloud-based Git repository hosting services, which means, as we first said when we talked about Git, all the changes are tracked on our local machine. Nothing is hosted on the cloud or elsewhere or whatever. But when it comes to GitHub, we are able to put or save all of our changes on another remote repository. And since we said GitHub is a company, 1 minute, okay. So since we said GitHub is a company, GitHub is not actually the only company who is offering cloud-based Git repository hosting services. We have also GitLab, we have Azure DevOps Server, or you might have Bitbucket and so many more. So this is something that you have to clear it out and understand in order to move on. So why do we use GitHub as developers? Because it helps us in collaborating with other developers. Because as we said earlier, the repository is hosted online. You can access it from any local machine. There are no issue in that, and which in returns enhance collaboration. Moreover, it's something easy to use. It's not like a hassle to manage the files online. It's totally different. It's totally easy. Moreover, you can actually network with fellow developers, see what is the project that they are working on. Moreover, you can check some open source projects, which one of them is actually Git, which is funny because Git is created before GitHub and still it's an open source project and hosted on it. So let's continue. Okay. So when we talked about the stages of Git, the tracking phases, how many phases did we say that we have? Anyone remembers? 3. Okay, and when we talk about GitHub, do you think anything will change? Anything will be added? What are your thoughts? Yes? Remote repository. Exactly. So if we look back at this, we will notice that we have our workspace, we have our staging area, and in order to do a change in our workspace and we want to add it into our staging area, we use git add. And finally, to commit it into our local repository, we use git commit. Now, if we want to use our remote repository, which is hosted on the cloud based repository on GitHub, we are going into our remote repository area. Okay, and in order to have our changes on it, we have to call the git push command. And when we want to, for example, retrieve the changes that we made, but on another machine, okay, we can retrieve these changes by calling get pull. When we do that, we are creating a new local repository on our new local machine, okay? And then Git do its job as we first talked about it. So are you ready to move on to GitHub now to check the changes? Okay, so let's get forward. So the steps are, we are trying to create a repo on GitHub, okay? And then we are trying to get the changes from GitHub into our local machine. And then we will try to make changes from our local machine and send them back to our remote repository. All right? So let's get to it, and then we are going to check the terms that we are going to learn. So here we are on GitHub. Okay, it's something familiar, and there are so many changes that happened. Here you can check the changes from some developers on what they are working, which is why it's great to actually follow developers on here. It's actually a nice social platform for developers. So let's get back to our steps. We said that you want to create a new repository. In order to do that, you will notice that there is a plus sign here, and you can click on it and say that you want to create a new repository. Let's, for example, name it demo in this case. We don't have any template for it, okay? We name it demo. If we want, we can add any description for it. I'm gonna make it private, for example, for now. And we can add a README file, or we cannot. Does anyone have an idea about why we might need a README file in our GitHub repository? To explain more about our project, this is a great answer. And you are exactly right, because when we talk about collaboration, we as developers, especially, and open source projects, we need a README file to explain to other developers what is our project about. Moreover, since in GitHub we are promoting the idea of collaboration between developers, we need to have some guidelines for other developers to know how to contribute into our project. Which is why in so many projects on GitHub, you can notice that there are some steps, or there are some naming conventions, or some rules maybe that the developers have thought about and wrote about in his README file in order to let others contribute in his folder, in his repository. So we don't need it at this moment. Then we will notice that here there is a git ignore. This is actually a very helpful tool because, for example, if you are creating a C++ project, GitHub is able to identify the files that should not be tracked, because some files should only be added in your local machine, for example. They shouldn't be tracked. So there are some templates here that are they could be easily identified by by GitHub, as I said. They will ignore the changes in it. And then there's the license. We don't care about it really more now, but it's actually used for copyright, for intellectual property of your source code, so that you could use it in order to let other people know how they can utilize your code. So this is how we are creating our first repository, and the first step is done. So you can notice here that something might be weird. It looks empty, but it's not empty. So you don't have to worry about all of this now, since we created a folder that has no file at all. Okay. So now that we have our remote repository, which means we are currently in this step, even though there are no changes, but I need to move this remote repository into my local machine, into my local repository. What is the method, or what is the command that you are going to use is git pull. But actually, no. Let me tell you why. When we use git pull, it is used to retrieve some changes. But since the repository locally is still not created, okay, we have to call another command. And this command is called git clone. And you don't have always to use the CMD because the user experience is actually very clear, let me say. Okay. So let me just double check. So here is our code, and I need to clone this folder, to clone this repository. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Visual Studio Code. I think that some of you are familiar with it, and some people will get familiar with it soon. I'm gonna open a new window now. In Visual Studio Code, you will notice that you are able to clone a Git repository. Okay? If you are saying that you want to clone, we are telling Visual Studio Code that our repository is available on GitHub. Okay? And since you are already signed in on Visual Studio Code with my GitHub account, I will notice here that I can easily check the link of my GitHub remote repository. Okay, and I can check it out. When I check it out, Git asks me, where do I need to save my local repository? So for example, I'm gonna save it on my desktop. I'm gonna name it, for example, local repo. Okay. Oh wait, what? Okay, never mind. Okay. I decided on my repository, and this is going to be saved locally on my own machine. So here I'm getting the changes from Git. Even though I have no file, but my remote GitHub repository is now initialized on my local machine. So what is the command that we used? Git clone. Okay, exactly. So we have it here. Here you can notice the source control. We are going to use it in a few. But what we are going to try is, I'm going to admit everyone. So what we are going to try now is to add a new file. Okay? In order to do that, in Visual Studio, it's very easy. I'm going to say this new.txt, for example. So this is a new file. I'm going to write in it, for example, new line, just to save something. Now, if I go to my source control in Visual Studio Code, you are going to notice that there are the changes that I have made. Now, in which area am I? In the working space, in the staging space, or in my local repository? Regarding to Git, not to GitHub. In my workspace, exactly. So regarding to Git, I still didn't commit any change. I'm working, I'm doing some changes that I'm still not sure if I need them really. So in order to do that, I can check here that there's a plus sign which says stage changes. I'm gonna zoom a bit. So here we can notice that when I clicked on plus, I'm gonna get it back. When I clicked on plus, I have staged the changes. So here my changes are in my staged area. And you can notice here the big button that says commit and the message button above of it. So if I try to click commit, I'm gonna get the same errors I used before because I have to enter a commit message for my commit. So let's say, for example, I added a new file with new line and save. Okay, so here Git asked me to add a message and everything is done. I have committed my changes. Now there is a version, there is an extension that you could use. It's actually named Git Graph. So you'll notice here that this is my change. Okay, so this is the change that I did. Here is the new file that I added, but I still did not push anything. So if I go to GitHub, I'm gonna notice that there's nothing here. Okay? In order to send my changes to my GitHub repository, I have to call git push, as we said it earlier. In order to do that, I will notice that I can come here, for example, I can call git push. Okay. So when I call this command, okay, I'm just checking. Okay, everything is fine. Nothing is no more loading. If I open GitHub now and I refresh the page, I will notice that the new file is currently added. Everything is clear? Okay, perfect. So now we checked how we can push the changes on GitHub and how we can pull them or clone the changes. Let me check if we got all the keywords. We learned what is cloning. I'm going to tell you a bit about what is stashing. Okay. We learned about push. Okay. Now, what is fetching? When we say we are fetching the changes from a certain remote repository, we are getting the changes, but without actually committing them into our local repository. So they are in an area that I can see them on my local machine, but I still did not commit them on my local repository. Is the fetch command clear for everyone? Okay. And after that, we have pull. We talked about it. And then we have, okay, branch and merge. I'm gonna see if you can tackle them if you still have the time. But I'm gonna tell you about stashing in a few. So here you can check in Visual Studio Code that, for example, if I do a change here, new line test, okay, I can notice in my source control that the changes are here. But if I don't want to commit it now yet, I need to save it. I need to save a version of the changes that I have made. Okay, I can easily, where is it? I can easily, okay, I lost it. But there is a command which is git stash. I'm gonna check if it is here. Okay. So I'm saving a version of the changes that I have made without actually committing them to my local repository or to my staging area. They are still in their own stashing area, let me say. Okay, so that's regarding stashing. I'm gonna tackle a bit the branch and the merge and pull request. So here are the main things that we tackle: git init, git clone, git status, add, commit, push, pull, log, and okay, I still have this. I'm gonna tackle them in a few before tackling the quiz. We still have time, right, Zainul?
Yeah, we still have to. No, don't worry.
Okay, amazing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open GitHub now. Okay. Okay. So here you can check that I have one branch in my GitHub repository. Okay, which is named actually main. So if I need to collaborate with other developers, I have to create another branch. And when I do create another branch, and I need to put the changes of my other branch into the main branch, okay? I have to ask the developer or the responsible of this repository to take my changes, review them, and merge them into the main repository. The concept, first of all, is clear. Okay, this is great. So this is the main concept of it. And GitHub help us collaborate with other developers. And here comes the idea of creating a new branch. So for example, let's say what I'm gonna try to do is, I'm gonna try to do it from Visual Studio Code, okay? So let's say here, you can notice that I'm currently in the main branch, like on the left down, okay? And I'm gonna create a new branch. Let's say, for example, I'm gonna add new file 2. Okay, this is my new branch. Here you can notice that I have changed. I'm not anymore in the main branch. And I'm gonna go back to, I'm gonna remove these changes. I don't need it anymore. I'm gonna add, okay, I'm gonna add new file 2.txt. Okay. And I'm still in my second branch. I'm not in the main one. So if I need to push the changes, for example, add a new file too, I commit and then I want to push. So I'm doing the two commands at the same time. Okay. Okay, I'm pushing them. Okay. Okay, and I have published the branch that I have created locally. When I do that, you will notice on GitHub that now I have two branches. Okay, so here is my second branch, add new file 2, and it has been pushed 9 seconds ago. I can see it here as well. Okay, so if I need to merge this branch with the changes from someone else into my main branch, I have to first create a pull request. So here is that I'm creating a pull request that I want to merge it within the main branch. Okay, so it's a request of changes that I'm sending into the main branch. Okay, if there's any description, for example, or there's any note, for example, that I need to send for the developer, I can write it here, and then I create pull request. And I can notice here in this tab that the pull requests have been created, okay? And GitHub automatically will check if there are any conflict with the main. Otherwise, I have to check or resolve the conflict in my local branch and then push them again in order to be able to finally merge them. So once I make sure that everything is clear, okay, I'm gonna just go back here. You can notice that in my main branch, I only have one file, while in my second branch, I have two files, okay? And what I need to do is merge the second branch into the first one, which okay, if I come back here, I'm gonna notice that I can merge. I confirm. So the pull requests have successfully been merged and closed. Everything is ready. And if I get back here, I notice in the main that I have two files. So this is the idea behind pull request, behind collaboration between two developers, and behind tracking the changes in order to be able to, well, follow up on the project in a good manner. So that's it for today, at least for me. And if anyone have a question, let me know. Okay. So what is the difference between merge and commit? Okay, so when we say we are committing a change, we are talking about different files in the same folder, okay? But when we talk about merging, it's like we are merging a different version of the repository into the main version or the final version. Which means here, for example, we have the main version, which is our single point of truth that we first talk about. And then we have the second branch that you have created. This second branch is based on the main, and I did some additional changes on it, okay? And it is still its own version of the repository, okay? And I'm deciding that all of these changes that I have made in this repository or in this version of my repository, I need to add them into my final version. Does that make sense in a way? Okay, perfect, amazing. So let me continue. I just need to share you this form. So in order to redeem your e-certificate and to redeem your LinkedIn Premium that we are going to talk about later, you have to fill out this form. And I believe that the stage is yours. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So that's a wonderful presentation, Marlene.
Thank you.
Let me just start my recording. You can stop your recording if you want. So I will be discussing some of the benefit pack that you can claim. So make sure to stay. Don't leave now.